For a long time, it was held that the Neanderthals were stupid, primitive subhumans, shambling, lacking symbolism. Turns out that that's not true at all.
Yet, the Neanderthals, stronger, larger, better adapted to the icy grip of their world, vanished. Meanwhile, Homo sapiens survived. Why? In 2025, a study published in Science Advances stunned archaeologists and evolutionary biologists alike. Of 51 fossilized teeth from ancient humans, spanning 1.8 million to 100,000 years ago, 73% bore traces of lead, not industrial pollution, but natural lead crystallized in water, ash, and even the food our ancestors consumed. Contrary to the pristine image of untouched nature painted in textbooks, the planet back then was far from pure. But what left scientists reeling was this: within that toxic cradle, human intelligence may have begun to evolve and flourish in unmistakable ways. It could be the very reason Homo sapiens endured. What should have killed them instead became an invisible hand, forging the human mind. Could it be that the dust and toxins, not a pristine natural world, were what made us smarter? In East Africa, the cradle of humankind, the earth still bears the scars of thousands of volcanic eruptions. Towering columns of sulfurous smoke once choked the atmosphere, blanketing the ground in fine ash laced with lead, mercury, and arsenic. The sky itself was a vast laboratory, where humans breathed in chemicals daily to survive. In the rainy season, water carried these heavy metals into rivers and lakes. In the dry season, ash dust swirled through the air. Ancient humans drank that water, ate the meat of animals grazing on that land, and absorbed toxins into their bodies. Over time, those elements seeped into their bones, their teeth, their blood, becoming part of who they were. But here's the strangest part: they didn't die. They adapted. Under that immense biological pressure, the body of Homo sapiens developed a resilience no other human species could match. Meanwhile, in the north, Neanderthals thrived in the cold forests of Europe. Their environment was clean, pure water, stable mountain air, free of volcanic ash or toxic dust. They were physically powerful, yet their brains may never have faced the intense chemical stress that Homo sapiens endured. No evolutionary test forced their minds to rewire. And when the world began to shift, climate, food, disease, they couldn't keep up. The lead lines in ancient teeth are like biological diaries, recording cycles of life and exposure. They stand as witnesses to millions of years of silent selection. Those too weak to withstand the toxins never lived long enough to pass on their genes. But the survivors with more adaptable brains, faster recovering nervous systems laid the foundation for us. One might say humanity didn't just evolve through flesh and blood, but through metal, lead, mercury. Arsenic, once seen as poisons, may have been the raw materials of intelligence. If this is true, then human intelligence wasn't a gift from nature. It was the outcome of a chemical experiment spanning millions of years, a trial where Earth itself was the laboratory, and humans, the only test subjects resilient enough to survive. To uncover the truth, researchers began simulating the effects of lead, mercury, and arsenic on neural tissue. What they found was chilling. These elements didn't just destroy cells, they challenged them. Each exposure triggered a cascade of reactions in the brain: neurons damaged, synaptic membranes fractured, bioelectric currents thrown into chaos. The body faced a choice: collapse or restructure to survive. In that process, some individuals developed small mutations in neural genes, enabling them to better withstand chemical stress. These genes governed the brain's ability to recover and regenerate, like circuits that could repair themselves over hundreds of thousands of generations. Those beneficial mutations didn't just ensure survival, they quietly reshaped the brain of an entire species. One of the most critical mutations was found in the gene NOVA1, which regulates neuron development. In experiments at Motry's lab, UC San Diego, 2021 scientists created mini-brains from stem cells, one with Homo sapiens variants, another with Neanderthal variants. When exposed to lead toxins, the Neanderthal brain rapidly lost structure, its neurons shriveling, its synaptic networks disintegrating. The Homo sapiens brain, however, held its form, maintaining steady electrical activity and most remarkably activating another gene, FOXP2. FOXP2 is known as the language gene, responsible for controlling the larynx, articulation, and processing symbolic signals. When stable, it enables abstract thought and communication of ideas. When disrupted, language collapses. The experiment's results sparked a question no one had dared ask before. Could the pressure of toxins have sparked the birth of language itself? To survive in a suffocating, toxic world, did humans have to learn to warn, cooperate, and communicate, forcing the brain to learn how to think? This mechanism is called neural selection through chemical stress. In a toxic environment, the brain retains only the strongest neurons while pruning weaker connections, like a forest burning away rot to birth new growth. Over time, generations living amid toxins didn't just grow physically tougher, they developed more flexible, adaptable brains, capable of learning and reacting swiftly to environmental shifts. Those individuals survived, reproduced, and passed on genes for neural resilience to their descendants. This wasn't natural selection. In the classical sense, it was chemical selection. Earth wielded its own poisons as an evolutionary tool, and the human brain became the product of millions of years of that experiment. The paradox is haunting what weakened the body may have birthed consciousness. Lead and mercury silent killers could also be catalysts for intelligence. If true, our intelligence isn't a divine gift, but a scar left by Earth on our brains, a chemical imprint of survival. The Pleistocene epoch, spanning over 2 million to 12,000 years ago, was a time when Earth both birthed humanity and nearly destroyed it. In East Africa, where colossal geological rifts tore the planet's surface, lava and toxic gases spewed relentlessly. That landscape was nature's vast factory, where fire, ash, and heavy metals mingled in the air, water, and soil. The sky turned silver gray, the earth stained with sulfur and ash, and the first rains fell like diluted chemical solutions. This was no world for life. It was a biological forge, where every creature had to adapt or vanish. Today, geochemists find traces of heavy metals in Rift Valley sediments, far exceeding those in any other region from the same era. Lead and mercury levels in ancient rock dwarf those found in Europe, where Neanderthals lived. Each volcanic eruption scattered these elements across the savanna, into water sources, into soil, and food. The river systems where prehistoric humans hunted and gathered became conduits for toxins. Humans ate, drank, breathed, and stored those metals in their bodies inescapably. Yet, instead of dying, they adapted at the molecular level. In ancient DNA samples, geneticists found heightened activity in detoxification genes like GST, SOD2 and MTF1 biological filters neutralizing free radicals and reducing oxidative stress in brain cells. These genes didn't just help humans survive toxins, they created a resilient brain, capable of recovering from damage and rewiring synapses faster than normal. In other words, chronic poisoning forged Homo sapiens' brains to be more durable than those of any other human species. As climates shifted, ice melted, rainforests and deserts swapped places, the groups carrying these resilient brains kept adapting. They didn't just endure chemical stress. They handled psychological stress better, learning to plan, coordinate, share food, and warn of danger. Brain resilience wasn't just biological, it became the foundation of social skills, language, and culture. Meanwhile, other human species, with less flexible brains, faded from the evolutionary map. Seen this way, the Rift Valley wasn't just humanity's cradle, it was Earth's forge of intelligence. There, nature didn't nurture with kindness, but with precisely measured doses of poison. Each volcanic eruption, each wildfire, each metal-laced rain was an evolutionary test. Only those who passed could climb the next rung of the biological ladder. Today, when we look at ancient soil layers bearing traces of mercury and lead, we're gazing at the very forge that shaped human intelligence. Without that harsh environment, Homo sapiens might have been just another primate, living and dying in obscurity. But Earth chose another path. It crafted a world toxic enough to challenge the brain and from it, forged a thinking human. If science tells us human intelligence was forged in poison, perhaps religion and myth knew it long ago, only they spoke in the language of symbols. In alchemy, the heavy metals we fear most were the most sacred. Lead was the element of transformation, a heavy, inert substance hiding the potential to become gold. Mercury, the shimmering, deadly liquid metal, was revered as a symbol of the mind and soul. For alchemists, turning lead into gold wasn't just a physical experiment, It was a metaphor for humanity's evolution from mortal flesh to enlightened intellect. In ancient religions, poison wasn't merely cursed, it was a gateway to enlightenment. In India, the god Shiva drank the poison halahala, churned from the cosmic ocean, to save the world from destruction. Instead of dying, he grew stronger, his throat turning blue, a symbol of consciousness reborn amid death. In the West, Hermes Trismegistus, the father of alchemy, was said to have drunk mercury to attain transcendent wisdom, becoming a messenger between mortals and gods. Seen through the lens of evolution, these stories seem to echo the same truth. Intelligence was born from poison. Even in the Bible, the forbidden fruit, the vessel of knowledge, carries a similar essence. It was dangerous, forbidden, yet once tasted, it changed humanity. Knowledge, consciousness, and fear emerged together. Like ancient Homo sapiens, who learned to live amid toxins, they gained the ability to think at the cost of eternal unease, knowing they could die. Cultural scholars call this biological memory encoded in symbols. While DNA preserves the physical traces of evolution, culture preserves its memory in myth. Poison, in its deepest sense, is the test of intelligence, the force that pushed humanity across the boundary between instinct and consciousness. Perhaps this is why, from Egypt to Greece, from India to China, humanity tells the same story. Intelligence is a gift from Earth, but never free. It's a dangerous gift, bestowed through pain, through trials, through the very substances that could kill us. Whether written in symbols or genes, the message remains: we had to drink the planet's poison to become wise. Looking at the world today, we might think humanity has left behind its primal past of toxic dust and volcanic ash. But in truth, the modern planet is recreating the very environment that forged our ancestors. No longer sulfurous smoke from the Rift Valley, but metallic dust from factories, microplastics in drinking water, and industrial fumes seeping into children's lungs. In the blood of urban dwellers, lead and mercury levels are now tens of times higher than in prehistoric times. The only difference today: the poison doesn't come from nature, it comes from our own hands. Biologists call this the second chemical selection cycle. Studies on epigenetic stress show that prolonged exposure to toxins doesn't just trigger immediate responses, it reprograms genes. Some neural genes switch on, others turn off, as if the body is testing multiple versions of itself to adapt. Terrifyingly, this process can unfold in just a few generations, far faster than classical evolution. Recent neurological studies reveal that the brains of children born in polluted cities are changing. Regions handling visual information and reflexes work faster, while those tied to focus and emotion grow less stable. Some scientists see this as evidence of adaptive evolution, the brain learning to filter information quickly to survive a world overloaded with toxins and data. Others warn it's the price of a new intelligence, a sharper but more fragile consciousness, brilliant yet prone to disorder. If, in the Pleistocene, Homo sapiens survived by developing resilient brains amid metallic ash, modern humans face a similar test on a global scale. Every plastic particle, every lead molecule, every puff of industrial gas is a small trial the body must endure. Somewhere, in the millions of silently shifting gene variants, Earth may be forging a new kind of intelligence, faster, colder, better suited to this artificial world. But is this evolution or a warning? If toxins once birthed intelligence, what might they be creating now, something beyond our control? The human brain was once Earth's product, but in the industrial age, is it becoming the product of our own pollution? No one knows the answer. One thing is certain: the chemical selection cycle never stopped. It's happening right now in the air we breathe, the water we drink, and every neuron learning to adapt to the world we've poisoned. Perhaps one day, our descendants will look back on this era and call it by the name history has already given the forge of human intelligence.